She returned to a town that once mocked her, saying little and revealing less. A reunion filled with old laughs and sharp memories soon turned into something no one could predict. But that was only the beginning. What happens after the truth is revealed? When silence is broken and change begins to stir, hearts are tested, loyalties shift, and love quietly finds its way in. This time, it's not about proving anything. It's about what comes next and who stands beside her when the town begins to change. Stay tuned because you are about to watch a beautiful story filled with redemption, love, and transformation. Hello, family. Welcome to Storytime Mutually. Kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel for more interesting stories. Like and share this video to your friends and loved ones. Your support and engagement encourage me to post more videos. Thank you as you do so. Sit back, relax as we dive into the story. It had been 3 weeks since Lady Thompson stood in front of her former classmates and shared her truth. Since that day, Glen Hill felt different. Not overnight. The roads were still cracked. The old houses still leaned in the wind. But something had shifted. You could feel it in the way people talked in the diner. In the way eyes followed Lady when she walked down the street. Not with mockery anymore. Not with pity. But with something close to respect. Lady stayed in town longer than anyone expected. She didn't hide in the hotel either. She walked through the park. She visited the library. She even sat on the church steps one afternoon, eating a simple sandwich. Some people waved. Some looked away. Most just watched, unsure of what to say. In the quiet of her small rented cottage, Lady sat at her kitchen table going through mail. Not bills. Letters. Handwritten letters. Some came in envelopes with shaky handwriting. Others were folded pieces of lined notebook paper. Some short. Some long. All of them personal. I'm sorry for what I said in high school. I wish I had been a better person. You're the reason my daughter is applying for college now. You've given me hope again. Lady read each one slowly. Some made her smile. Others made her eyes water. One envelope caught her eye. She opened it and unfolded the note inside. It was from Tasha Green. Dear Lady, I still wake up feeling ashamed. I see your face in my memory, and I hate the way I treated you. I don't expect you to talk to me, but thank you for forgiving me. I've applied for the tech training you're offering. I don't know if I can change, but I want to try. My kids deserve better than the woman I used to be. Thank you, Tasha. Lady stared at the letter for a long time. Not because she was angry, but because it reminded her of something important. People can change when they're given the chance. Later that afternoon, she visited Graham's bakery. The smell of fresh bread and cinnamon rolls filled the air. Mr. Graham greeted her with a warm smile. You're turning the town upside down, he said, handing her a small bag of pastries. I'm not trying to, she replied. Just trying to give back what was never given to me. He nodded, handing her a small coffee. You're doing more than you know. As she stepped out of the bakery, she saw a few teenagers gathered around a flyer posted on a nearby pole. It read, Free tech skills training, starting soon. No experience needed. Laptops and tools provided. A new chance for Glen Hill's future. Lady stood there for a moment, watching them. They didn't know her story. They didn't know about the empty lunch boxes or the nights without power. But maybe that was the point. They didn't need to see where she had come from. They only needed to see what she was offering them now. A way forward. Later that evening, she sat on her front porch, sipping tea as the sky turned gold with sunset. The birds were quiet. The street was still. But somewhere beneath it all, change was whispering. It moved slowly, softly, like spring under melting snow. Lady smiled to herself. She didn't need cheers. She didn't need the past to vanish. She just needed the future to begin. The sun rose quietly over Glen Hill the next morning. A thin fog hung low over the streets, curling around rooftops and empty sidewalks like a secret the town was still holding on to. Lady stood in front of the old warehouse at the edge of town, the same building that had once been abandoned and falling apart. Now, fresh paint covered its walls. New windows sparkled. Inside, computers waited on clean desks. Bright lights filled the space, and on the door hung a clean, bold sign. Glen Hill Community Tech Center. Free learning. New skills. Second chances. It was the first day of orientation. Lady didn't speak at the front. She didn't stand on a stage. She stood quietly in the back, leaning against the wall as people arrived. Some faces were young, some old. Some looked excited. Others looked nervous. A few looked like they didn't believe this place was really meant for them. Ben was already there handing out name tags and laptops. He caught her eye and smiled. A woman with tired eyes walked in, holding a notepad close to her chest. Lady knew her instantly. Tasha. She paused when she saw Lady standing by the wall. Her eyes flickered with hesitation. She looked down, then stepped forward and signed her name. She sat near the back, just 2 rows in front of Lady. The instructor stepped up and welcomed everyone. He talked about the program, how it would teach basic computer skills, web design, and even job readiness. He told them that people who finished the program would be helped into jobs or paid internships. As he spoke, Lady watched the people, not the screen. A boy in his 20s leaned forward with interest. A grandmother took notes in neat handwriting. Tasha raised her hand and asked how to turn on her laptop. Everyone helped each other. No one laughed. No one mocked. That's what Lady wanted most. A room where no one felt less than anyone else. Later, after the orientation ended, Ben walked over to her with 2 cups of coffee. He handed her one. Not bad for day one. They showed up, she said, sipping slowly. That's the hardest part. Ben leaned against the railing beside her. People are starting to believe you're serious. Lady smiled faintly. I am. He looked at her carefully. And are you okay? She turned to face him. What do you mean? I mean this place. These people. The letters. The whispers. The weight of being the person they all now expect something from. Lady paused. She looked out across the parking lot where a few students were laughing together for the first time in years. I don't feel powerful, Ben, she said. I feel responsible. Like I've been given something fragile. And I'm afraid I'll drop it. You won't, he said. How do you know? He looked at her seriously. Because you're not doing this to be seen. You're doing it so others can be. She didn't reply, but she smiled. Before she could say anything else, a voice called from the gate. Miss Thompson? They turned. A young woman, no older than 20, stood holding a small notebook. I just wanted to say thank you, she said shyly. I've never touched a laptop before. My brother got a job in the city because he learned coding. I want to try too. Lady nodded gently. You're in the right place. The girl smiled and walked off. Ben chuckled softly. See? You're already changing lives. Lady glanced at him. 1 stone at a time. What? She looked up at the tech center sign, her voice thoughtful. Change doesn't come like thunder. It comes like a single stone dropped into still water, then the ripples spread. Ben nodded. And as they stood there, no cameras, no reporters, just 2 people watching the future slowly unfold, they both knew. This was only the beginning. The first week at the Glen Hill Community Tech Center passed like a quiet sunrise, slow but full of hope. Each day more people came. Students who had never touched a computer learned to type. Older men and women asked questions without shame. There was laughter, mistakes, progress, and even a few tears. Lady Thompson watched it all from behind the scenes. She didn't want to be in the spotlight. She simply wanted to build something that could stand on its own. But not everyone liked what she was building. Across town, in a polished office above the local bank, Carl Benson sat frowning at a glowing computer screen. He was a local developer. Sharp suit. Slick hair. Quick smile. But behind his charm was a man who liked control, and Lady Thompson had just taken it away from him. She bought the warehouse I had plans for, he said coldly. That was supposed to be luxury apartments. High return. Then she goes and turns it into a free school? His assistant looked nervous. And the library too, sir. Her name is now tied to the renovation contract. Carl leaned back in his chair. She's ruining the market. People think this town is a charity case now. Free classes. Free help. Free this, free that. Makes the rest of us look like villains. She's done a lot of good, the assistant said softly. Carl gave him a sharp look. And some people don't like being reminded of what they didn't do. He turned back to his screen and began typing. To whom it may concern. There are questions surrounding Lady Thompson's sudden rise in wealth. We suggest a deeper investigation. Is this the kind of figure Glen Hill should be celebrating? He sent the message anonymously to a local gossip site, then closed his laptop with a smug smile. If he couldn't beat her openly, he would do it from the shadows. That weekend, Lady stopped at the grocery store. She wore simple jeans and a soft sweater. No one would guess she had millions in her account. As she walked down the cereal aisle, she heard whispers behind her. That's her, someone muttered. Did you hear she changed her name after college? Someone online said she didn't earn that money. Probably just married rich. She's hiding something. You don't get that rich without stepping on people. Lady paused beside the cereal boxes, her heart quiet but heavy. She didn't turn around. She didn't argue. But the words stayed with her. Back at her cottage, she sat alone on the porch, watching the trees sway in the wind. A letter rested in her lap. This one and signed. We see what you're doing. Glen Hill doesn't belong to you. Leave while you still can. She folded it slowly and placed it in a drawer with the others. Ben arrived an hour later. He saw the look on her face before she even spoke. Someone sent another note? He asked. She nodded. This one felt different. He took the letter and read it, his expression darkening. This is serious. I know, she said quietly. Ben sat beside her. Why are they doing this? After everything you've done? Because change scares people, she said. And when fear takes over, people look for someone to blame. Ben turned to her. You don't have to do this alone, you know. I'm not trying to be a hero, Ben. I know. That's what makes you one. They sat in silence for a while, the wind whispering through the trees. Then Lady said, I'm not leaving. Not now. Not while people are starting to believe they're worth more than the world told them. Ben smiled. Then we'll face this. Together. But inside, Lady knew the shadows were only just beginning to move. The real test was still to come. 3 days passed. Lady woke each morning to walk the town's edges, where the roads cracked, where the homes leaned, where the silence lingered. She watched the people. Some smiled. Some avoided her eyes. Some just looked confused, like they didn't know if she was a friend or a threat. The whispers hadn't stopped. If anything, they were growing louder. By the 4th morning, Lady received a call from one of the tech center staff, a young man named Jordan. You need to come see this, he said, his voice tight. It's bad. She arrived 10 minutes later. What she saw stopped her in her tracks. Someone had spray-painted the front doors of the tech center. Big, red letters covered the entrance. You don't belong here. Glen Hill isn't yours. Get out, Lady. The paint dripped like blood. Lady stood still. Her eyes didn't move. She didn't speak. Ben showed up moments later. I came as soon as I heard. He looked at the mess, his face burning with anger. This is too much, he said. We need to report this. We need to find out who did it. Lady didn't move. She simply walked over, picked up a bucket of water, and soaked a cloth. What are you doing? Ben asked. Cleaning, she said. He blinked. You shouldn't be the one. I have to be, she said softly. Because I won't fight hate with more hate. Not here. Not today. She began scrubbing the door. The red paint smeared, then faded. It was slow work. The bucket turned pink. The rags soaked through. Jordan came out with another cloth. I'll help, he said quietly. Then another student came. And another. Within 20 minutes, 12 people were outside, scrubbing the doors in silence. Some were students. Some were staff. One was Tasha. She didn't say a word. She just bent down and started wiping the sidewalk. The words disappeared. In their place was something stronger than anger. Unity. Later that day, Lady called for a small gathering inside the tech center. No press. Just people from the town, those who had helped clean, some curious neighbors, and even a few who had stayed silent until now. She stood in front of them with no notes, no microphone. I came back to Glen Hill because I believed it still had a heartbeat, she began. Not just buildings, not just roads, but people who could change. She paused, looking at their faces. Some of you think I'm here to take over. That I want to own this town. That I've come with hidden plans. But I haven't. Her voice didn't shake. It was steady.
Calm.
I came here because once, I was the girl no one saw. I left in silence. I came back to give this town what I always wished it had given me, a second chance. A few people lowered their eyes. I won't run away, she said. And I won't fight back with anger. But I will keep building. Keep showing up. Because some of you believe this place can be more. And so do I. The room was quiet. Then a voice spoke up. It was Tasha. I used to be part of the reason she left, she said, standing slowly. And now I'm part of why she's staying. If we let this moment pass, we don't just lose Lady, we lose ourselves. No one clapped. No cheers. Just quiet agreement, the kind that goes deeper than noise. After the meeting, as people left, many came up to Lady and nodded, or shook her hand. A few even said, "Thank you." That night, Lady sat on the porch of her cottage with Ben. The sky was dark, but the stars were sharp and clear. "You didn't have to clean those doors yourself," he said. "I did," she replied. "Because if I wait for others to lead, I might wait forever." Ben handed her a mug of tea. "People are changing. I saw it today." Lady sipped slowly.
They are.
"But it's fragile, like glass in warm hands." He looked at her. "And you? How do you feel?" She paused, her eyes drifting toward the trees. "I feel tired," she said honestly. "But I also feel steady. Like I'm standing in the middle of a storm, and I know I won't fall." Ben smiled. "You're stronger than you know."
No, she said.
"I just finally stopped being afraid." They sat there, side by side, while the wind moved gently through the trees. And though Glen Hill was still learning to open its heart, Lady had already opened hers. The next morning, the streets of Glen Hill were quiet, but something had changed. The people who had once watched from behind curtains now opened their doors. The ones who whispered in grocery aisles now spoke in open voices. Something about seeing Lady clean hateful words off her own building had touched them. It was strength without shouting, grace without pride. By noon, the mayor's office phone wouldn't stop ringing. Are the rumors true? Did she really build the center with her own money? What can we do to help? At the town council meeting that week, seats were full. People came who hadn't attended a meeting in years. They didn't come to complain. They came to stand up. One after another, they spoke. "I was wrong about Lady," said Mr. Darson, the retired school janitor. "I judged her without knowing the full story." "My son couldn't get work," said Maria Alvarez. "Now he's in the tech program. He made his first resume last week." He smiled again for the first time in months. Even Tasha stood. "I'm not proud of the girl I used to be. I tore Lady down when we were kids. But now she's building all of us up. And if you let fear chase her away again, we'll lose the best thing this town has had in years." The room went still. At the edge of the room, Carl Benson sat with folded arms and a sour face. He didn't expect this. He thought they would turn against her. He thought she would run. Instead, they were defending her. When the meeting ended, the mayor stood and cleared his throat. "In recognition of her service, generosity, and quiet strength, I'd like to propose a motion," he said. "That we honor Lady Thompson with a permanent plaque in the town square and rename the park in her name." The room broke into applause. Carl stormed out. The next day, construction began on a small stone path in the town park. At the center, workers laid a square foundation for the plaque. Lady didn't ask for it. She didn't even attend the vote. But when she passed by later that week and saw the space being prepared, she stopped and stared. Then, walking beside her, said softly, "You've done more in 6 months than some people have done in 30 years. She smiled quietly. "I didn't do it alone." "No," he said. "But you started it." She stood in silence for a moment, watching a young mother and her son walk through the park. The boy pointed at the work being done. The mother leaned down and whispered something to him. Lady couldn't hear the words, but she saw the boy's eyes light up. Meanwhile, Carl Benson's hold on the town began to slip. One of his land deals fell through when the bank pulled out. The council refused to approve his next project. His name had gone from respected to questioned. But the final blow came when an investigation opened into his past land purchases. It turned out not everything had been done fairly.
Bribes.
False appraisals. Quiet pressure on old owners to sell cheap. His hands weren't clean, and Glenhill had finally stopped looking away. Within 2 weeks, Carl put his office up for rent and moved out of town without a word. Just like that, the loudest voice against Lady was gone. But she didn't celebrate.
She didn't post about it.
She didn't mention his name. She just kept working. The Glenhill Community Tech Center grew, slowly but surely. New classes were added. A job board went up. A mentor program launched. People from nearby towns started asking if they could sign up too. Lady still walked the halls. Still sat in the back of classes. Still listened more than she spoke. One afternoon, as she reviewed progress reports in her office, Ben walked in holding a brown envelope. "What's this?" she asked. He smiled. "From the mayor's office." Inside was a photograph, taken the day the plaque was finished. The bronze square read, "Lady Thompson Innovation Park. In honor of the girl who was once forgotten, and the woman who helped us remember who we could be." Lady stared at the picture for a long time. Then she placed it in a frame and set it on her desk. Not because she needed the praise, but because it was a reminder that healing was possible, that hate could fade, that sometimes the quietest fight brings the strongest change. And in that moment, Lady Thompson, the girl once mocked and ignored, realized. She had become part of Glenhill's story, not as a visitor, but as someone who came home and stayed. The sun dipped low behind the hills of Glenhill, spreading warm orange light across the town like a soft blanket. The streets were quiet. Shops closed early. A cool breeze rolled in from the trees, carrying the scent of fresh soil and blooming flowers. At the edge of town, inside a small stone cottage, Lady Thompson was setting 2 plates on the kitchen table. She wore a soft cotton dress and a light cardigan. Nothing fancy, just something comfortable. She moved with a quiet calm, her bare feet making no sound on the wooden floor. There was a knock on the door. She smiled. Ben Carter stood outside, holding a paper bag with a bottle of apple cider. "I brought something sweet," he said. Lady stepped aside to let him in. Perfect timing. Dinner's ready. They sat across from each other at the small table, the candlelight flickering between them. The food was simple: grilled vegetables, roast chicken, and warm bread from Graham's bakery. For a while they just ate and talked about little things. How the garden was growing. How Tasha's kids were doing in school. How a student at the tech center had just gotten his first job. But as the plates emptied and the candle burned low, the air between them grew quiet. Not tense, just full of something unspoken. Ben leaned back in his chair, watching her closely. "You know, I've never seen anyone do what you've done." Lady tilted her head. "What do you mean?" "I've seen people give money. I've seen people make speeches. But you came here and did something harder." She waited. "You listened," he said. "You let people change their minds. And you didn't push." Lady looked down at her glass. "I didn't want to be the hero of this story. I just didn't want to be the ghost of it anymore." Ben stood slowly and walked to the window, looking out at the night. "You've given people more than computers and classes. You've given them a reason to believe again. In themselves. In each other." Lady stood too, walking beside him. "I didn't expect to fall in love with this place again," she said quietly. "And I definitely didn't expect to fall for someone here." Ben turned to her, his eyes warm. "You have?" Lady met his eyes. "Yes." There was no music. No movie moment. Just 2 people standing close enough to hear each other's breath. Ben reached for her hand. "So have I." He didn't ask for a kiss. He didn't rush her. But she stepped closer, rested her head gently on his shoulder, and whispered, "I'm glad I came back." They stood like that for a long time, the moonlight shining softly through the window. Not everything had been said. Not everything had to be. Sometimes, hearts speak louder in silence. Over the next few weeks, Lady and Ben spent more time together. They walked through town in the evenings, shared meals at the bakery, planted flowers outside the tech center. It was never dramatic, just real,
Steady.
natural. People noticed. Some smiled. Some whispered. But no one questioned it for long. Glen Hill had seen them both, who they were, who they had become, and they approved without needing to say it out loud. One evening, as they sat under the old oak tree in the park, Ben turned to her. "Do you think this is what peace feels like?" Lady looked up at the stars. "I think it's the beginning of it." He smiled. "That's enough for me." She reached over and held his hand. And in that moment, surrounded by quiet streets, blooming gardens, and the slow healing of a town that had once been broken, they didn't need anything more. Because love had come not in a storm, but in the calm that followed. The morning sun rose gently over Glen Hill, casting golden light across the town like a blessing. It was a peaceful Sunday, and the streets were quiet except for the sound of birds and the distant chime of the church bell. Inside the tech center, the classrooms were empty, but the building wasn't silent. A new sign had been installed in the entrance hall. It read, "Welcome to the Lady Thompson Learning Center, where new beginnings are always possible." Lady stood beneath the sign, hands folded in front of her. She didn't smile for pictures. She didn't pose. She just stood there, quietly proud. Next to her, Tasha Green finished arranging a row of student portfolios. Her hair was pulled back, and she wore a navy blue blouse and jeans. She looked like a woman with purpose and peace. "I still can't believe my name's on the staff list," she said softly. "You earned it," Lady replied. "You worked for it." Tasha turned toward her. "No one's ever believed in me like you did." Lady smiled. Sometimes all someone needs is one person to say, "Yes, you can." Tasha wiped her eyes, then laughed at herself. "I cry too easily now. Before all this, I only cried when I lost a fight." "You didn't lose," Lady said kindly. "You just hadn't started winning yet." They hugged, tight, real, and full of quiet forgiveness. Later that afternoon, the town square was buzzing. A small stage had been set up near the edge of Lady Thompson Innovation Park. Families gathered. Children played. Balloons floated gently in the breeze. It was a celebration. 1 year since the opening of the tech center. Lady and Ben stood near the back of the crowd, hands clasped together. Ben looked at her and smiled. "You know, this park used to be full of weeds. Now look at it." Lady squeezed his hand. "It's not just the flowers. It's the people." Just then, the mayor stepped onto the stage. "In 1 year," he said, "Lady Thompson didn't just change buildings. She changed lives. People who never dreamed of working in tech now hold jobs across the state. Some have even started businesses. And one of them," he paused, smiling, "opened her own digital studio." He motioned to Tasha, who stood near the side of the crowd. Cheers broke out. Tasha stepped forward, face glowing with pride. "I used to think my past defined me. But now, because of Lady, I know it doesn't. I've built something my kids can be proud of. And I'll spend the rest of my life helping others do the same." Lady stood still, watching with soft eyes. It wasn't fame. It wasn't fortune. It was impact. And it meant more than all the numbers in her bank account. That evening, Lady and Ben returned to the cottage. The fireplace crackled. Soft music played from the old radio in the corner. Lady sat curled on the couch, her head resting on Ben's chest. "Do you miss the city?" he asked. She shook her head. "I have everything I need here. You could still do so much more, bigger things, global work." She looked up at him. "I don't want big anymore.
I want deep.
I want real. And I want you." Ben smiled, brushing his fingers through her hair. "Then you have me." They kissed slowly, sweetly. The kind of kiss that wasn't about passion alone, but about promise. "I love you," she whispered. "I've loved you," he said, "since before you ever came back." They stayed close that night, the stars watching from the window. No fear. No more whispers. Just peace. Weeks turned into months. Tasha's studio became successful. She hired 2 former students from the tech center. She gave talks at schools. Her children saw her as a leader, not just a mother. Ben expanded his own small carpentry business. He and Lady built wooden furniture for the tech center, the library, and even the park. Lady continued to guide quietly. She trained new mentors, helped design new programs, and answered letters from people all over the country asking for advice. But she never left Glen Hill again, because Glen Hill was home. On a warm spring day, as birds chirped and children played in the park that bore her name, Lady sat on a bench beside Ben. She watched as Tasha led a group of young girls through a coding class under the open sky. She watched as an old student helped a newcomer log in for the first time. She watched as Glen Hill, her once-forgotten hometown, bloomed around her, not just in flowers, but in people. Ben turned to her, resting a hand on hers. "Happy?" he asked. She looked around at the life she had helped shape. "I'm finally whole," she said. And in the soft light of the afternoon, with laughter in the air and love in her heart, Lady Thompson knew her story had not ended in pain. It had grown into something beautiful. She had come home, and she had stayed.
Loved.
Forgiven. And never forgotten. That brings us to the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you do, kindly subscribe to my channel, like, and share this video to your friends and loved ones. You can also comment what you feel about the story. Thanks for watching.